The cantina smelled like burnt metal and cheap fuel. Strange alien music played from speakers that crackled with age. Zarthok sat alone at a corner table, his forearms resting on the scarred surface. His chitinous armor reflected the dim blue lights that hung from the ceiling. He was drinking something that glowed faintly green in his glass. Across the room, a group of young bounty hunters laughed loudly. They were celebrating. Their leader, a Vraxian named Kraven, stood on a chair and raised his weapon above his head. His scales were bright red, a sign of youth and aggression. The other hunters cheered and slammed their fists on the table. "To another successful hunt," Kraven shouted. "And to our next target, the biggest payday yet." Zarthok's eyes flickered toward them. He had been trying to ignore the noise, but something in those words caught his attention. He took another sip of his drink and listened. "Those stupid humans thought they could steal from the Vortex Corporation," one of the hunters said. He was a Kelthian with 6 eyes and skin like rough stone. "They took medical supplies worth 500,000 credits." "Medical supplies?" another hunter asked. This one was smaller, with tentacles instead of arms. "Why would anyone risk their lives for medicine?" Kraven laughed. "Who cares? The corporation wants them alive. They're offering 200,000 credits for the whole crew. That's a human freighter called the Wanderer. Only 5 crew members. Should be easy work." Zarthok's grip tightened on his glass. The other hunters continued talking, planning their attack. They discussed weapons, tracking methods, and how they would split the reward. They sounded confident. They sounded like they had already won. Zarthok stood up. His height made several nearby aliens look up in surprise. He was tall even for his species, and his reputation was known across several sectors. The cantina grew quieter as he walked toward the group of young hunters. Kraven noticed him approaching and grinned. "Well, look who decided to join us." The legendary Zarthok himself. He turned to his crew. "Do you know who this is? This is the mercenary who captured the pirate king of Andromeda, the hunter who tracked the ghost fleet across 3 galaxies. I know your reputation," Zarthok said quietly. His voice was deep and rough. "And you are about to make a terrible mistake." Kraven's grin faded slightly. "What are you talking about?" "The humans. You should not hunt them." The young hunters looked at each other and then burst into laughter. Even Kraven seemed amused. "Are you serious? They're humans. Weak, soft creatures from a little blue planet. They barely have faster than light travel. What makes them so dangerous?" Zarthok did not laugh. He pulled a chair from another table and sat down with the group. His 4 eyes focused on Kraven with an intensity that made the young Vraxian's smile disappear. 20 cycles ago," Zarthok began. "I thought the same thing. I was hired by the consortium to capture a human ship. They had entered restricted space, and the consortium wanted to make an example of them. The payment was excellent. The job seemed simple." One of the hunters leaned forward. And I learned why you should never hunt humans." The cantina had grown silent now. Other aliens at nearby tables were listening too. Zarthok's reputation was such that when he spoke, people paid attention. "The ship was called the Wanderer," Zarthok continued. "It was a small exploration vessel. The crew consisted of only 5 humans. Their captain was named Jake Morrison. The pilot was a female called Amy Chen. They had an engineer, Ben Wallace, a medic named Lisa Park, and a scientist, Kevin Hart." 5 against your whole crew?" The Kelthian hunter asked. "How many did you have?" 12. "All of them elite fighters. I had hunted and captured hundreds of targets across the galaxy. I had never failed a contract." Zarthok paused. "Until I met those 5 humans." Kraven crossed his arms. "So what happened? They had some secret weapon? Advanced technology we don't know about?" "No," Zarthok said. "They had something much more dangerous. They had determination, creativity, and the inability to give up." He took a long drink from his glass, remembering. The memories were still sharp even after 20 cycles. "We tracked them for 3 days before we caught up to their ship. They were near an asteroid field, trying to repair their navigation system. We came out of nowhere with our weapons charged. My crew was experienced. We knew how to disable a ship without destroying it. We hit them with an electromagnetic pulse. Their engines died instantly. Their weapons went offline. All their systems failed. We approached slowly, expecting them to surrender. Most species do when they realize they cannot escape." The young hunters were quiet now, listening carefully. "We boarded their ship through the cargo bay. I sent my team in first, weapons ready. But when we got inside, the ship was empty. Not a single human in sight. All the escape pods were still attached. The life support was still running. But there was no crew. Where did they go? The tentacled hunter asked. They had evacuated into the asteroid field. They put on emergency suits and went out into space with nothing but basic tools and supplies. They abandoned their ship rather than be captured. Craven snorted. So they ran away. That doesn't sound very dangerous. Zarthok's eyes narrowed. That is what I thought too. I ordered my crew to split up and search the asteroids. The field was large, but we had scanners, weapons, and experience. 5 humans in basic suits against 12 trained hunters. It should have been over in hours. Let me guess, Craven said with a smirk. It wasn't. No, it was not. Zarthok leaned back in his chair. His chitinous armor creaked slightly. Within the first 3 hours, I lost contact with one of my hunters. His name was Torgon. He was tracking a heat signature near a large asteroid. He reported that he had found one of the humans and was moving to capture. Then his communication cut off. We found him 4 hours later. He was alive but trapped inside a small cave in the asteroid. The entrance had been collapsed using explosive decompression. The human had lured him in with a false heat signature, then triggered an explosion that sealed the entrance. Torgon had to wait until we could dig him out. The young hunters exchanged glances. They were starting to look less confident. 2 more of my crew went missing that same day. We found them unconscious, floating in space. They had been hit with projectiles made from pieces of the ship. The humans had somehow created weapons from scrap metal and debris. Simple weapons, but effective. How? The Kelthian asked. Their suits should not have the power for that. The engineer, Ben Wallace, had modified their suits. He used parts from their emergency equipment to create small propulsion devices and makeshift tools. The medic, Lisa Park, knew enough about our biology to target weak points in our armor. The pilot, Amy Chen, understood how to move in zero gravity better than any of us. Zarthok paused and looked at each of the young hunters. But the worst part was their captain, Jake Morrison. He was not the strongest or the fastest, but he was the smartest. He set traps. He used the environment against us. He turned every asteroid, every piece of debris, every shadow into a weapon. By the end of the first day, I had lost 4 crew members, not dead but captured or incapacitated. I realized then that I was not hunting prey. I was fighting enemies who refused to lose. The cantina was completely silent now. Even the music had stopped. Everyone was listening to Zarthok's story. I called for reinforcements, Zarthok said. I reported to the consortium that the job was more difficult than expected. They laughed at me. They said I was being beaten by 5 humans and that I should be ashamed. They refused to send help. So what did you do? Craven asked quietly. His earlier confidence was gone. I continued the hunt. I had a reputation to protect. I could not return as a failure. My remaining 8 crew members and I searched the asteroid field for 6 more days. 6 days of constant fighting, constant surprises, constant fear. Zarthok stood up slowly. He looked down at the young hunters with an expression that was hard to read. Do you know what I learned during those 6 days? He asked. I learned that humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Not because they are strong, not because they are smart, but because they never give up. They fight with everything they have. They turn their weaknesses into strengths. They make weapons from nothing, and most terrifying of all, they learn quickly. He turned to leave, but Craven stood up and grabbed his arm. Wait, you cannot just stop there. What happened? Did you catch them? Zarthok looked at the hand on his arm, then at Craven's face. Slowly, he removed the young Vraxian's grip. I will tell you the rest, he said. But first you must promise me something. After I finish my story, you will abandon your hunt for that human freighter. You will find another target. Any other target, Craven hesitated. His crew members looked at each other nervously. Promise me, Zarthok repeated. Or I walk away now and you learn the lesson I learned the hard way. Finally, Craven nodded. Fine, I promise. Now finish the story. Zarthok sat back down. He ordered another drink from a passing server, a small alien with multiple arms. When the drink arrived, he took a long sip before continuing. The second day was worse than the first, he began. That was when I realized the humans were not just defending themselves. They were hunting us back. Zarthok's voice grew quieter as he continued his story. The young hunters leaned in closer to hear every word. Around them, other aliens in the cantina had stopped their own conversations. Everyone wanted to know what happened next. On the second day, I decided to change my strategy. Splitting up was clearly not working. The humans were picking off my crew one by one. So I gathered my remaining 8 hunters together. We would search the asteroid field as a group. Surely 5 humans could not defeat 9 of us working together. He paused and shook his head slowly. I was wrong again. The humans had been waiting for us to do exactly that. They had been watching us, learning our patterns. While we thought we were hunting them, they were studying us. The Kelthian hunter spoke up. But how? They were just wearing emergency suits. They should not have had the equipment to track you. The scientist, Kevin Hart, understood physics better than our navigation officer. He watched how we moved through the asteroid field. He calculated where we would go next based on our search patterns. And Jake Morrison used that information to set up an ambush. Zarthok took another drink. His forehands trembled slightly as he remembered. We were moving through a narrow passage between 2 large asteroids. It was the logical path to take. The rocks on either side were too big to go around, and our scanners showed no heat signatures nearby. We thought it was safe. Then the rocks started moving. Ben Wallace had rigged explosives using fuel from their emergency supplies. When we entered the passage, he triggered a controlled collapse. Smaller asteroids came crashing down around us. 2 of my hunters were hit. Their suits were damaged. We had to evacuate them back to our ship immediately. Craven's eyes widened. They used the asteroids themselves as weapons? Yes, and that was just the beginning. While we were distracted by the collapse, Amy Chen attacked from above. She had been hiding behind a rock formation, using minimal power in her suit to avoid detection. She dropped down on my communications officer and disabled his equipment with some kind of electromagnetic device they had built. Without communications, we were in chaos. My crew members were shouting, trying to coordinate, but the interference was too strong. In that confusion, Lisa Park struck. She knew exactly where to hit our armor to cause the most damage without killing us. 2 more hunters went down before we could regroup. The young hunters sat in stunned silence. Zarthok could see the realization dawning on their faces. This was not a story about incompetent hunters losing to lucky prey. This was a story about experienced professionals being systematically defeated. By the end of the 2nd day, I was down to 5 crew members, including myself. We had started with 12. The humans had evened the odds using nothing but scrap, knowledge, and determination. That night, we returned to our ship. My crew was exhausted, frightened, and angry. They wanted to leave. They said the contract was not worth this, but I refused. I told them we would rest, repair our equipment, and try again in the morning with a better plan. Zarthok's expression darkened. That was my 3rd mistake. I should have listened to them. I should have left. But my pride would not let me. He continued his story, his voice heavy with regret. On the 3rd day, we tried something different. We used remote drones to search the asteroids. We stayed on the ship and controlled them from safety. The drones had sensors that could detect heat, movement, and even breathing. We thought this would keep us safe while we found the humans. For a few hours it worked. The drones searched dozens of asteroids without incident. Then Ben Wallace hacked into our control system. I still do not know how he did it with such limited equipment, but he managed to access our network. He took control of 3 of our drones and turned them against the others. One of the young hunters gasped. He hacked your ship from an emergency suit? Yes, we lost all 6 drones in less than 10 minutes. Worse, he used the connection to plant a virus in our navigation system. Our ship's computer started giving false readings. We could not trust our own instruments. It took us 8 hours to clean the virus from our systems. 8 hours during which the humans had free movement through the asteroid field. When we finally got our systems back online, they had moved to a completely different section of the field. We had to start our search all over again. Zarthok stood up and walked to the window of the cantina. Outside, ships of various sizes and designs moved through the docking area of the space station. He watched them for a moment before continuing. On the 4th day, I decided to take a different approach. If we could not find them, we would make them come to us. I broadcast a message throughout the asteroid field. I told Jake Morrison that we had identified his ship's registration. I said we knew where they came from, and if they did not surrender, we would report their location to the consortium. The consortium would send a fleet to their home. It was a bluff. We had no way to contact the consortium quickly enough, and even if we could, they would not send a fleet for 5 humans. But I hoped Jake Morrison would not know that. Did it work? Craven asked. In a way. Jake responded to our message, but not the way I expected. Zarthok turned back to face the group. His 4 eyes gleamed with a mixture of respect and fear. He told me that he knew I was bluffing. He said he had been monitoring our communications and knew we had not contacted anyone. Then he made me an offer. If we left immediately and never came back, his crew would let us go in peace. If we continued the hunt, they would destroy our ship and leave us stranded in the asteroid field. I laughed when I heard that message. 5 humans in emergency suits threatening to destroy our ship. It seemed absurd. I told him we would never leave without completing our contract. I challenged him to try and carry out his threat. Zarthok sat back down heavily. That was my 4th mistake. Jake Morrison never made threats he could not keep. The young hunters were completely focused on the story now. Even Craven had lost all traces of his earlier arrogance. That night, while we slept in shifts, something attached itself to our ship's hull. We did not notice it at first. Our sensors did not detect anything unusual. But in the morning, when we tried to move the ship, the engine would not start. Ben Wallace had somehow gotten close enough to our ship to sabotage the main power coupling. He used parts from their ship that they had salvaged before we boarded it. The device he attached drained our power slowly, redirecting it into space. By the time we discovered it, we had lost 40% of our energy reserves. How did he get past your security? The tentacled hunter asked. He did not. He never boarded our ship. He attached the device to the outside of the hull, in a spot where our sensors had a blind spot. Kevin Hart had calculated exactly where that blind spot would be based on our ship's design. They knew our own ship better than we did after watching us for only a few days. It took us 6 hours to remove the device and repair the damage. During that time, we were sitting targets. The humans could have destroyed us if they wanted to, but they did not. They were still showing restraint, still giving us chances to leave. Zarthok's voice became even quieter. I did not see it as mercy then. I saw it as mockery. I became obsessed with capturing them. This was no longer about the contract or the money. It became personal. I wanted to prove that I was still the best hunter in the galaxy. I wanted to show that humans were not as dangerous as they seemed. On the 5th day, we set a trap of our own. We found one of their supply caches hidden in a small asteroid. They had been storing air, water, and other necessities throughout the field. We waited near that cache, knowing they would eventually come back for supplies. Amy Chen came. She approached carefully, checking for danger. But we were patient. We let her reach the cache and begin gathering supplies. Then we struck. We surrounded her quickly, 5 of us against 1 human. She had nowhere to run. Finally, after 5 days of hunting, we had captured one of them. Zarthok's expression became grim. I thought I had won. I thought this would be the turning point. I contacted Jake Morrison and told him I had his pilot. I said if he did not surrender within 1 hour, I would harm her. I told him to come to a specific location in the asteroid field, alone and unarmed. What did he say? Craven asked quietly. He agreed. No argument, no negotiation. He just said he would be there. Zarthok looked around at the young hunters. That should have been my first clue. Jake Morrison agreed too easily. He had a plan. He always had a plan, but I was too focused on my victory to see the trap I was walking into. He finished his drink and signaled for another. We waited at the meeting location. I had Amy Chen bound and guarded by 2 of my crew. The other 2 were positioned around the area, watching for any tricks. I stood in the center, waiting for Jake Morrison to arrive. He came exactly on time. He flew into the area on a small thruster pack, his hands raised to show he was unarmed. He landed near me and removed his helmet. That was the first time I saw his face clearly. What did he look like? One of the hunters asked. Ordinary. That was what surprised me. He looked like any other human. Not particularly tall or strong. His face was tired and dirty from days in the emergency suit. But his eyes were completely calm. There was no fear in them. No anger, just determination. The new drink arrived, and Zarthok drank half of it before continuing. His 4 hands gripped the glass tightly, as if he needed something solid to hold on to while remembering what came next. The moment Jake Morrison smiled, several things happened at once. My ship's alarm started blaring. Ben Wallace had gotten inside somehow. He was in our computer systems again, but this time he was not just planting a virus. He was taking complete control of the ship. My 2 crew members who were supposed to be watching for danger suddenly shouted warnings. Lisa Park and Kevin Hart appeared from hiding spots I had not even known existed. They had been there the whole time, waiting for the signal. And Amy Chen, the pilot we thought we had captured and bound, broke free from her restraints. They were not real restraints at all. She had been pretending to be helpless, waiting for the right moment. Craven's mouth fell open. She let herself be captured? Yes, it was all part of their plan. Amy had been carrying a tracking device when we captured her. While we were focused on her and Jake, Ben Wallace used that signal to locate our ship and sneak aboard. The whole hostage situation was a distraction. Zarthok shook his head slowly. In less than 30 seconds, my entire operation fell apart. My ship was under hostile control. My crew was surrounded by 3 humans who had appeared from nowhere, and I was standing face to face with Jake Morrison, who was not nearly as unarmed as he had appeared. He pulled a small device from his suit. It was a weapon they had made from ship components. Simple but effective at close range. He pointed it at me and very calmly told me to order my crew to stand down. I had no choice. I gave the order. My hunters dropped their weapons. We were defeated. After 5 days of hunting, 5 humans had beaten 12 trained mercenaries. The young hunters sat in silence. The cantina remained quiet. Even the bartender had stopped working to listen to the story. But here is the part that truly frightened me, Zarthok continued. Jake Morrison did not kill us. He did not even want to capture us. He just wanted us to leave. What do you mean? The Kelthian hunter asked. He told me that he understood we were just doing a job. He said he knew we had been hired by the consortium and that we were following orders. He did not blame us personally. He only wanted us to leave his crew alone and never come back. I could not believe it. I told him that if he let us go, we would just report back to the consortium. They would send more hunters. His mercy would accomplish nothing. Zarthok's expression became distant, as if he was seeing that moment again. Jake Morrison looked at me with those calm eyes and said something I have never forgotten. He said that humans believe in giving people chances. He said every intelligent being deserves the opportunity to make better choices. If we chose to come back, that would be our decision. But he was giving us the chance to walk away. Then Lisa Park, the medic, stepped forward. She was still wearing her emergency suit, but she had medical supplies with her. She said she wanted to check on my injured crew members. I thought she was joking. We had been trying to capture her for 5 days and now she wanted to help us? But she was serious. She treated the 2 hunters who had been injured in the asteroid collapse. She carefully examined them, explained what she was doing, and used her limited supplies to make sure they would be okay. All while we were her prisoners, and why would she do that? One of the young hunters asked. I asked her the same question. She said that once the fighting stops, everyone is just a person who might need help. She said being a medic means helping anyone who is hurt, even enemies. It is part of human medical ethics. Zarthok paused and looked around at the group. That was when I truly understood how dangerous humans are. They combine ruthless efficiency with unexpected mercy. They can be vicious fighters one moment and compassionate healers the next. You never know which side you will face, and that uncertainty is terrifying. He continued his story. Ben Wallace released control of our ship, but not before showing us everything he had accessed. He had been in our communications, our navigation, our weapon systems, everything. He could have destroyed the ship or vented our atmosphere into space. Instead, he just proved that he could have done it if he wanted to. Kevin Hart explained to us exactly how they had survived for 5 days. He described every trap, every calculation, every strategy. He was not bragging. He was teaching us. He wanted us to understand that this had not been luck. It had been planning, teamwork, and human adaptability. Then Jake Morrison made us an offer. He said we could leave in our ship with all our equipment, but we had to promise never to hunt humans again. Not just his crew, but any humans. He said if we agreed, he would not report us to the consortium. No one would know we had failed. I asked him how he could trust us to keep that promise. He said he could not. But he believed that most beings, when given a choice between kindness and cruelty, would choose kindness. He was giving us that choice. Zarthok's voice became rougher, thick with emotion. My crew wanted to agree immediately. They had been terrified for 5 days. They wanted to go home. But I hesitated. I had never failed a contract before. My reputation was built on success. If I walked away, would I still be respected? Would I still get hired? Jake Morrison seemed to understand my struggle. He said that reputation can be rebuilt, but lives cannot be replaced. He said there is no shame in choosing to live rather than die for pride. Then something happened that changed everything. One of my crew members, the youngest one, panicked. He saw Amy Chen standing near him and thought she was going to attack. He grabbed a weapon we had dropped and fired at her. Jake Morrison moved faster than I thought possible. He threw himself in front of Amy and took the blast meant for her. The weapon hit him in the chest. He collapsed to the ground. The young hunters gasped. Craven leaned forward. He jumped in front of an enemy weapon? Yes, without hesitation. He protected his crew member even though it meant risking his own life. That is what human leaders do. Zarthok's 4 eyes became wet, something rare for his species. The moment Jake was hit, everything changed. Amy Chen screamed his name. Lisa Park rushed to his side. Ben Wallace took complete control of our ship again, this time locking all of us out. Kevin Hart aimed 3 improvised weapons at us, his earlier calmness replaced by cold anger. My crew member who had fired the shot dropped the weapon in horror. He had not meant to hurt anyone. He was just scared. But intention did not matter. He had injured their captain. Lisa Park worked on Jake Morrison frantically. She used her medical supplies, her emergency suit's life support systems, everything she had. Amy Chen held his hand and talked to him, telling him to stay awake. I watched these humans care for their leader with an intensity I had never seen. Jake Morrison was badly hurt, but the blast had not been immediately fatal. Our weapons were designed to stun and incapacitate, not kill. But he was losing consciousness and needed real medical treatment soon. I made a decision then. I ordered my crew to return to our ship. I told them to retrieve our medical supplies and bring them to Lisa Park. My hunters looked at me in confusion, but they obeyed. Why did you help them? The tentacled hunter asked. They were your enemies. Because Jake Morrison had shown us mercy when he could have killed us. The least I could do was try to save his life. Besides, if he died, I knew his crew would not let us leave alive. And honestly, at that moment, I did not want him to die. Despite everything, I had come to respect him. Zarthok took another drink. My crew brought our medical equipment. Lisa Park accepted it with a brief nod of thanks, then went back to work. She was good at her job. Within minutes, she had stabilized Jake Morrison's condition. He would survive, though he needed better treatment than we could provide in an asteroid field. I told Amy Chen that we had a medical pod on our ship. I offered to let them use it to fully heal Jake Morrison. She looked at me suspiciously, wondering if it was a trick. Ben Wallace warned her not to trust us, but Jake Morrison, still conscious despite his injury, told them to accept. He said I could have let him die if I wanted revenge. The fact that I helped proved I was serious about the truce. So we carried him back to our ship. Lisa Park and Amy Chen stayed with him constantly. Kevin Hart and Ben Wallace kept their weapons ready, not trusting us completely. My crew and I stayed out of their way. We put Jake Morrison in our medical pod. It was advanced technology, designed to heal most injuries within hours. As the pod worked, we all waited. Humans and aliens standing in the same room. No longer enemies, but not quite friends either. During those hours, we talked. Amy Chen told us about Earth, about how humans had only recently joined the galactic community. Kevin Hart explained human history, their wars, their struggles, their achievements. Lisa Park described human medicine and how they had learned to fight diseases and injuries that would have killed them centuries ago. Ben Wallace talked about human technology and how they approach problems differently than other species. He said humans are good at making things work with limited resources because they had to survive on a planet with no help from anyone. I listened to all of it. I learned more about humans in those few hours than I had in years of hearing rumors and stories. And I realized something important. Zarthok looked directly at Craven. Zarthok released Jake Morrison's hand and stepped back. The human captain looked around at the gathered mercenaries, his expression serious but not threatening. Amy Chen stood beside him, her hand resting near a makeshift weapon but not gripping it. Lisa Park, Ben Wallace, and Kevin Hart formed a loose group behind their captain, ready for anything. "Thank you for the medical treatment," Jake Morrison said to Zarthok. His voice was strong despite the recent injury. "You did not have to help me. You did not have to let us live," Zarthok replied. "I suppose we are even now." Jake shook his head. "This is not about being even. This is about making a choice about what kind of beings we want to be. You chose mercy when you helped me. That matters." One of Zarthok's crew members spoke up. "What happens now? We cannot return to the consortium with nothing. They will blacklist us across the galaxy." Jake Morrison considered this. He looked at his crew, and they seemed to have a silent conversation with just glances and small gestures. Finally, he turned back to Zarthok. "Tell the consortium that we destroyed our ship and scattered into different systems. Tell them you tracked us for 8 days, but we had backup plans you did not know about. Tell them we had equipment that was more advanced than expected. Make it sound like we were more than we appeared. You want me to lie? Zarthok asked. I want you to save your reputation while keeping your promise not to hunt us. The consortium does not need to know the details. They will accept your report and move on to other matters. Meanwhile, we can repair our ship and leave this sector. Ben Wallace stepped forward. I can help with that. I can create false data trails that support your story. Navigation logs, sensor readings, communication intercepts. Everything the consortium would expect to see. They will never know what really happened here. Zarthok's crew members looked at each other in surprise. The humans were offering to help protect their reputation. After everything that had happened, they were still showing kindness. Why would you do this for us? Zarthok asked. We hunted you. We tried to capture you. We made your lives difficult for days, Amy Chen answered. Because Jake is right. Everyone deserves a chance to make better choices. You helped him when he was injured. That tells us you are not a bad being. You were just doing what you thought you had to do, Lisa Park added. Besides, if we can turn enemies into people who might help other humans someday, that is better than just creating more enemies. Kevin Hart nodded. Strategic mercy. It is something humans learned after many wars on Earth. Sometimes the best victory is the one where everyone gets to walk away and learn something. Zarthok was silent for a long time. His 4 eyes studied each human in turn. He was trying to understand them, to figure out if this was some kind of trick. But their expressions were genuine. They truly meant what they said. I accept your offer, he finally said. But I want to add something to our agreement. I will not just promise to never hunt humans. I will spread the word about what happened here. Other mercenaries and hunters need to know what they are facing if they go after your species. Jake Morrison raised an eyebrow. You will tell others about how 5 humans defeated your entire crew? Yes, I will tell them the truth. Not to embarrass myself, but to warn them. If I can prevent other hunters from making my mistakes, maybe fewer beings will get hurt on both sides. The human captain smiled. That is more than I hoped for. Thank you, Zarthok. Over the next several hours, the humans and the mercenaries worked together. Ben Wallace created the false data trails he had promised. Kevin Hart helped adjust the consortium's communication records to match the false story. Lisa Park treated the remaining injuries among Zarthok's crew. Amy Chen and Jake Morrison discussed navigation routes that would let both groups leave the area without crossing paths again. It was strange to watch former enemies working side by side. Zarthok's crew was wary at first, but the humans were patient and friendly. They explained what they were doing, shared some of their food supplies, and even joked occasionally. The tension slowly faded. Ben Wallace showed Zarthok's computer specialist some of the tricks he had used to hack their systems. Not so you can use them against us, he explained, but so you can defend against someone else doing it to you. Your security has some weak points. The specialist was amazed. You are helping me improve our security? After you just exploited those same weaknesses? Sure. Like I said, we are not enemies anymore. Besides, better security makes everyone safer. If you ever run into pirates or real criminals, these improvements could save your lives. Kevin Hart talked with Zarthok about the physics of the asteroid field. He explained how he had calculated the gravitational patterns and used them to predict movement. Your species has better natural reflexes than humans, he said. But we are pretty good at math and planning. We use our brains to overcome our physical limitations. Lisa Park taught Zarthok's medics some basic human medical techniques. I do not know much about your biology, she admitted, but the principles are similar. Stop bleeding, maintain breathing, prevent shock. If you ever encounter injured humans again, hopefully under better circumstances, this information might help. Zarthok watched all of this with growing respect. These humans could have just taken what they needed and left. Instead, they were building bridges, sharing knowledge, and turning a terrible situation into something positive. When everything was ready, Jake Morrison called everyone together. Humans and aliens stood in a circle in the cargo bay of the mercenary ship. We are about to go our separate ways, Jake said. But before we do, I want to say something. What happened over the past 8 days was difficult for all of us. People got hurt. Everyone was scared. But we all survived, and maybe we learned something important. He looked at each of the aliens in turn. You all have skills and abilities that are impressive. You are good at what you do. But I hope you will think carefully about the jobs you take in the future. Not every contract is worth taking. Not every target deserves to be hunted. Amy Chen continued the thought. There are real criminals out there. Pirates who hurt innocent people. Smugglers who traffic in dangerous weapons or drugs. Those are the targets worth hunting. But people like us who were just exploring and trying to help others, we should not be targets. One of Zarthok's crew members asked, "How do we know the difference?" "The consortium told us you were criminals," Ben Wallace answered. "You ask questions. You investigate. You do not just take a contract because someone is paying. You think about whether the job is right." Kevin Hart added, "And sometimes you have to trust your instincts. If something feels wrong about a job, it probably is wrong." Lisa Park smiled softly. "We are not saying you should stop being mercenaries. Just be mercenaries with honor. Be the kind of hunters who only go after beings who truly deserve it." Zarthok stepped forward. He placed one of his 4 hands on his chest in a gesture of sincerity from his culture. "Everything you have said is true. I have been a hunter for many years, but I never questioned my contracts before. I just assumed that if someone was willing to pay, the target must deserve to be caught. I was wrong. From now on, I will be more careful, and I will teach others to be careful too." He looked at his crew. "All of you have fought bravely. You have also shown that you can be merciful and wise. I am proud to work with you. When we leave here, we will be different than when we arrived. We will be better." The mercenaries nodded in agreement. Some looked relieved. Others looked thoughtful. All of them seemed to have been changed by the experience. Jake Morrison extended his hand to Zarthok again. "Safe travels. I hope our paths cross again someday under peaceful circumstances." Zarthok took the hand firmly. "Safe travels to you as well. And thank you. Thank you for not killing us when you had the chance. Thank you for teaching us instead of just defeating us." The 2 groups separated. The humans gathered their equipment and prepared to return to their damaged ship. The mercenaries escorted them to the airlock, no longer as guards but as respectful companions. Before the humans left, Lisa Park turned back one more time. "Oh, I almost forgot. The medical supplies you were sent to stop us from delivering. They were for a colony suffering from a disease outbreak. Children were dying. We stole them because the corporation that owned them was refusing to help without payment the colony could not afford." She paused, letting that sink in. "We are criminals according to the consortium, but sometimes being a criminal is the right thing to do. Just something to think about." With that, the 5 humans left the ship and flew back across the asteroid field to the Wanderer. Zarthok and his crew watched them go in silence. One of the mercenaries finally spoke. "They stole medicine for dying children, and the consortium called them criminals." Another added, "And we tried to capture them for it." Zarthok's voice was heavy. "Yes, we did. And if they had not been so capable, we would have succeeded. Those children would have died, and we would have been paid well for causing it." The crew stood quietly, processing this realization. "We need to change," Zarthok said firmly. "Not just in how we select contracts, but in how we think about our work. We are not just tools for whoever pays us. We have responsibility for our actions." His crew agreed. They had learned an expensive lesson, but it was one. In the cantina on Outpost Vega 7, Zarthok finished his story and looked at the young hunters. They sat in complete silence, their earlier confidence and excitement completely gone. Kraven, the red-scaled Vraxian who had been so eager to hunt humans, now looked pale and uncertain. "That is what happened 20 cycles ago," Zarthok said. "That is why I warn you never to hunt humans." The tentacled hunter spoke quietly. "Did you keep your promise? Did you really stop hunting humans?" "Yes. I have never taken another contract against a human. I have turned down dozens of jobs over the years, some offering incredible payment. But I gave my word to Jake Morrison, and I will not break it." Craven cleared his throat. "And did you spread the warning like you promised?" "I did. Many hunters ignored me. They thought I was exaggerating or making excuses for my failure. Some went after humans anyway. None of them succeeded." "What happened to them?" the Kelthian asked. Zarthok's expression became grave. "Some came back like I did, defeated but alive. Others were not so lucky. Humans show mercy when they can, but not all situations allow for mercy. Some hunters pushed too hard, threatened human colonies, or attacked civilian ships. Those hunters learned that humans can be as fierce as they are merciful. He stood up and walked to a console on the wall. He pressed a few buttons and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed a list of names and dates. These are hunters who ignored my warning and went after humans in the past 20 cycles. 17 names. Out of 17, only 5 came back alive. Of those 5, 3 are permanently disabled. 1 went insane from the experience. And 1, like me, became a warning voice for others. The young hunters stared at the list in horror. Kraven's scales had lost all their bright color. But that is not even the worst part, Zarthok continued. The worst part is what humans did after those encounters. Every time a hunter went after them, they learned. They adapted. They became better at defending themselves. He pressed another button and the display changed to show images of human ships and technology. 20 cycles ago, humans were barely capable of space travel. Their ships were slow and their weapons were basic. Now look at them. They have defense fleets. They have military training programs. They have developed new technology specifically designed to counter the tactics used by hunters and mercenaries. You did that, Kevin Hart's voice had said during one of their conversations in the asteroid field. Every species that attacks us teaches us how to defend against them. We learn from our enemies faster than they learn from us. Zarthok turned off the display and sat back down. I learned later what happened to Jake Morrison and his crew. The consortium tried to hunt them again, sending different mercenaries. But word spread among the human community about what they had done. They became heroes to their people. Jake Morrison was promoted to admiral in the Human Defense Forces. He now commands an entire fleet. Amy Chen became the chief instructor for human pilot training. She teaches others how to fly in ways that confuse alien sensors and tactics. Ben Wallace is the head of human cybersecurity. Every human ship and station now uses security protocols he designed based on what he learned from hacking our systems. Lisa Park runs the Human Combat Medical Program, training medics to treat injuries on any species, enemy, or ally. And Kevin Hart. He advises the human military on strategy and tactics. He helps them understand alien psychology and predict how different species will react in various situations. The young hunters looked at each other with dawning understanding. Kraven spoke slowly. You are saying that by trying to capture them, you helped create some of humanity's most effective defenders? Exactly. My failure became their success. Every hunter who went after humans and lost made humanity stronger. We trained them. We showed them our weaknesses. We taught them how to fight. Zarthok leaned forward, his 4 eyes intense. That is the real danger of hunting humans. It is not just that they might defeat you. It is that every encounter with them makes them more dangerous for the next hunter. They share knowledge. They teach each other. They build on every lesson learned. He paused, letting his words sink in. There is a human saying I learned. It goes, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." For most species, that is just a nice phrase. For humans, it is literally true. Every challenge they face, every enemy they fight, every problem they encounter makes them tougher and smarter. The Kelthian hunter spoke up. But they are still just one species. We have the entire galaxy. Surely we are more powerful together. Are we? Zarthok challenged. How many species work together as well as humans work within their own species? How many times have you seen alien crews coordinate like Jake Morrison's crew did? How often do different alien species share knowledge and technology freely? Silence answered him. Humans are dangerous because they have unity we lack. They trust each other. They work together. They share what they learn. A human who fights you today will teach 10 more humans what worked against you. A human who survives will make sure others know how to survive too. Zarthok stood and began removing his armor. Underneath, his skin was marked with scars. Some were from weapons. Others were from impacts and burns. He pointed to a particularly large scar across his torso. This is from when I underestimated Amy Chen. She hit me with a piece of debris moving at high speed. I barely survived. He pointed to scars on 2 of his arms. These are from the collapsed asteroid that Ben Wallace triggered. The rocks moved faster than I expected. He showed them a scar near one of his eyes. This is from when I got too close to Kevin Hart. He had calculated exactly where to strike to temporarily blind me without killing me. Even in combat, humans can be precise. Finally, he pointed to a scar over where his primary heart would be. And this is from Lisa Park. She was defending Jake Morrison when he was injured. She knew exactly where to strike to stop me without causing permanent damage. A medic who knows how to hurt as well as heal. He put his armor back on slowly. Every scar is a reminder. Humans are not prey. They are not weak. They are not easy targets. They are survivors who have turned survival into an art form. Kraven stood up abruptly. His crew looked at him, waiting for his decision. He looked at each of them, then at Zarthok. "We will not hunt the human freighter," he said firmly. "You are right. The contract is not worth it. We will find another target." "A wise choice," Zarthok said. "May I suggest you also be more careful about which contracts you accept in the future? Not every job is honorable, even if it is legal." One of the young hunters asked, "What do you do now? If you do not take contracts against humans, who do you hunt?" "I am more selective now. I only accept contracts against genuine criminals. Pirates, smugglers, terrorists, beings who truly harm others. And I make sure to investigate before I accept any job. I never want to be on the wrong side again." Zarthok finished his drink and prepared to leave. But Kraven stopped him with one more question. "Do you regret hunting Jake Morrison and his crew?" The old mercenary thought about this carefully. "I regret that it happened the way it did. I regret that people were hurt. But I do not regret the lesson I learned. Meeting those 5 humans changed my life for the better. I am a better hunter now. But more importantly, I am a better being." He looked at each of the young hunters. "You asked earlier if humans are really that dangerous. Let me give you a final answer. Humans are dangerous in ways that have nothing to do with strength or weapons. They are dangerous because they make you question yourself. They make you think about right and wrong. They make you want to be better than you are. Jake Morrison could have killed me. He could have taken revenge. Instead, he showed me mercy and taught me wisdom. That is more dangerous than any weapon because it changed who I am. I cannot be the same hunter I was before I met him." Zarthok walked toward the exit of the cantina. The other aliens moved aside to let him pass. His reputation still commanded respect, maybe even more now than before his story became known. At the door, he turned back one last time. "Remember this. Humans are not your enemies unless you make them so. But once you do, you will face an enemy who never gives up, never stops learning, and never forgets. Choose wisely." He left the cantina and boarded his ship. On the hull, painted in several languages including human English, were the words, "Never hunt humans." Inside the cantina, Kraven and his crew sat quietly. The celebration from earlier was forgotten. Finally, one of them spoke. "Should we tell the others?" "There are many young hunters who might not know." Kraven nodded. "Yes, we will spread the warning. Zarthok is right. This knowledge could save lives." They began composing messages to other hunters, other crews, other mercenaries across the galaxy. Zarthok's story would spread further. More hunters would hear the warning. Some would listen, some would not. But the word was getting out. Far away on a human colony at the edge of explored space, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship. He was reading reports from various sectors when a message came through on a secure channel. It was from an old contact, someone who monitored the mercenary networks. The message was brief. Zarthok told his story again. Another group of hunters decided not to pursue human targets. Thought you would want to know. Jake smiled and deleted the message. He looked out at the stars through.